Hello everyone, it's Wednesday night and it's just a little before 7, so I'm just gonna wait a minute or so. I know most people catch the replay. Because it's Wednesday evening, it's 7 o'clock here in Texas, in the middle of the week. And it is. It's 7 o'clock. So I'm going to get started right now because I have had a day and having a week. So I'm going to probably do some of my anxiety reduction practices when I get off the live stream here and go to bed. Okay, so once again, I want to review tonight about giving your anxieties to God. How do we really do that? See, I have a mind, I guess I'm still, you know, that the little toddler brain or the preschooler brain, and they're like, why this, why that, how this, how does the plane fly? When I read the Bible, my brain does that a lot. You know, pray without ceasing. How are we supposed to do that? You know, give all your anxieties to God. Don't worry about anything. Well, how are we supposed to do that? And then I go on this little adventure, and through this little self-discovery adventure, and through this, over the years, I have picked up so many strategies. And on top of that, I am, I don't know if I said it in our last meeting, I am a school psychologist. I'm licensed here in Texas. So I have been working over 20 years in the public schools, working with children, kids, and teenagers right all the way up to age 18, and many times with their parents. And the thing I see more than anything, as well as experience it myself and in my own family, because we have the anxiety gene in our family through and through, and everyone has a little bit or a lot. Most of us have a lot. But you know, they say that it used to be before COVID, 20% of the population could have anxiety, you know, diagnosable anxiety at any time. It's really the common cold of psychology or mental, I hate using the term mental illness, but you know what I mean. Psychological maladies is anxiety, but that doesn't mean that it's any less debilitating. And because when you do live with chronic anxiety, it is very, very debilitating. But anyway, with that introduction, just thanks for, if you're able to make it live tonight, if you're watching the replay later, thanks for coming back. I know that I pack these full of information, and so sometimes you might have to come back, watch the replay, rewind. What did she say again? Let's try to work this all out. But starting next week, Monday, September 8th, is when I'm starting the next cohort. And this is the third round of cohorts. I just began doing these earlier this year. And so each one gets a little better with a little more that I'm able to put into it. And so I'm real excited about this third cohort because I've learned from the last two. The last two were very transformative, but this one is going to be even better because I've gotten feedback and can make it even better for those who are going through. And before you turn off the screen and say, oh, she's just gonna sell something. No, it's free. The basic cohort is free, and everything that I teach is someone sending me a message? No. Okay. Everything that I teach in the upgrade version, you receive it in the free version. Okay. And if you're basically you're functioning pretty well and you're just having stressors here and there and you're pretty good with the self-help and going through the information on your own, that's great. The upgrade option, and even that's only $37, is if you want a little bit more structuring. I will be checking in with you by email almost every day for the first 2 weeks. And then we have extra time in the small group on the Zooms. We have 2 or 3 additional Zooms where we actually do some guided practice, because I have seen in my last cohorts that women who have been struggling with anxiety for a long time, they sometimes get a little stuck. Not in a bad way or anything, but we're usually able to, and just need a little bit more time. And so I'm happy to go above and beyond if you think that that's something that you want to do. And right now, I do have, I don't fill it up full. I keep it so it's manageable, so that everyone that has questions or wants some support or guidance has time. But there are, I think, about 5 or 6 slots still open for this next cohort. And then the next one, there will be one more at the end of August, but it will run from the end of October, before Thanksgiving, before we break for the new year. So that's just the introduction. But I'm going to walk tonight through kind of the path that we go through. And it's 4 weeks, so 28 days. And so we know that it takes 21 days to really establish a habit. So we have 3 weeks, the 21 days, and then add in an additional 7 days just to make sure that it really sticks. And I think what I do that's different is because I've spent 20-something years in public schools, and I've been able to learn a lot and help a lot, but I am not able to bring in my faith into it at all. In fact, okay, I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail, but anyway, so I decided that when I started doing this on my own, I didn't just decide. The Lord prompted me. What we have with Jesus and what we have with the Holy Spirit is so strong and so good, and there's just no way. I would be inauthentic. I mean, I have to put that aside in the schools. And occasionally, if I know a family is a Christian family and like the child starts bringing it up, I'll call the parent and I'll say, he brought up talking about Jesus. I'm a Christian too. Is it okay if we talk about faith in our sessions? And most of the times those parents will say yes. But that's the only time, I have to have permission. But not here. Not here. So, that is my 72-pound golden retriever puppy. He'll be 1, and he's our first puppy ever, and he's been contributing to our stress. I know why my mother never got me a puppy when I was a kid. We always got the older dogs that were already adults and hopefully already potty trained. But anyway, he's doing good. But that just brings me to kind of an analogy or a metaphor. The first thing for both anxiety and both for really spending time with God is we have got to be still. And I don't know that I've ever really learned how to be still. And I mean still. I don't mean sitting at home, relaxing with your phone, going through your, seeing what all your Facebook buddies are doing, or even watching TV. That's not resting everything, including the mind. And so the reason I thought that, because lately we've been teaching him stay, and we've taught him all the things. He's doing really good. He's Teddy sit, Teddy stay. Not stay. Teddy sit, Teddy down, Teddy heel, Teddy shake, Teddy spin around. He's doing all the things. But recently we've started teaching him stay. And it's like he had a really, really hard time with stay, because he's like, I do all these tricks. He'd be sitting there for a little while, and then all of a sudden he'd just do a little spin or something, thinking we wanted to do something. And we're like, no, we had to train really, really hard for stay. For him to learn, you mean you just want me to do nothing? And that's where my biggest reward is? Because when he is staying and when he is still, he has such a hard time learning it that when he does it now and holds it for 10 to 20 seconds, we give him 3 treats. And he's a little confused. He's like, why am I not just getting treats all the time? You treat me when I do tricks, you treat me when I don't do tricks. So, but kind of the same way. If we learn, we do for God, and we think about our practices, and we think our prayer practice and our going to church practices and our giving and all the things that we do. But the biggest rewards come when we learn to be still. And I know a lot of people came here through the post about anxiety, and especially us with anxiety, we have a hard time, even if we can get our bodies still, getting our minds still. So what we do in the cohort that's starting up on Monday, the free cohort, is it's broken down into 4 weeks. And the first week we focus on faith-based somatic practices. And somatic practices, the word somatic just means related to the body. It comes from the word soma. And there are some very simple relaxation techniques that make a huge, huge difference. It's been measured, it's been assessed, it's been researched, it's been evidence-based, it's been peer-reviewed, all the things. There are 3 main practices that we focus on. The first one is probably one you've heard before. It's breathing, taking intentional deep breaths. And the trick is your exhale, you inhale, and then your exhale must be longer. But you do that for a couple of minutes or at least 8 times. And then we go ahead and add in some ways that we can make that also time with God by either reciting scripture, the stanzas of scripture, or the names of God. Okay, so we start with doing some deep breathing exercises every day, and you get to choose what time of day is best for you for the somatic exercises. But that one is evidence-based, and then the second one that is evidence-based, and the two together will have your anxiety down about 10 notches within 2 to 3 weeks. And for midlife people, midlife women especially, this was a side finding in the research. They started reporting after about 3 weeks, I'm getting my energy back. I'm feeling like I did 10, 20 years ago. I'm getting up, I'm going out, I'm doing things. I know even for myself, as working in the schools, I do have 6 weeks off in the summer. This summer was the first summer because I started doing these practices. Here's the crazy thing. I've known about these practices since I was in college, in grad school, because they taught us these practices, but they told us to use them for people who have regular panic attacks and that type of thing. It was not for just everyday anxiety. So I've actually been doing what I teach really anxious people, super anxious people to do, which actually I am one, strangely enough. But even I've had like 3 or 4 bona fide panic attacks where I actually went to the hospital thinking something was really wrong, over the course of about 16 to 20 years. So it's not like I'm having panic attacks all the time. So I didn't really think that my anxiety was that bad, or I just didn't make the connection myself. You know how it is, how you can see what other people need, but you can't always see it in yourself. But so I've known about these, but it was when I read the Harvard paper about these, midlife women getting their energy back and the theory is because all these decades of stresses and every time we have anything, whether it's a really large stressful event, somebody dies, somebody gets a health diagnosis that's not good, a job loss, something's going on with our kids, with our teens, with our adult children. Those are kind of the big things, but even the smaller things, like you're driving and you just barely avoid, that car swerves in front of you and honks and you barely avoid and you tense up. All of this stress over the days and the years and the decades, it slowly starts to just store itself. This is the theory. It just starts to store itself into our muscle skeletal system. And so we have got to do some intentional exercise to release it. And yes, general exercise, going for a walk, all of those things are great. Doing, power fit or whatever they call it, lifting, all those things are good and they're going to help. But it's still not the same as intentionally going through each muscle group and tensing it and relaxing. And that is what progressive muscle relaxation is. It's proven to reduce blood pressure, reduce cortisol, which is the stress hormone that also makes it difficult to lose belly fat. It reduces blood sugar. And not to mention, it just reduces anxiety and reports of depression. And my last cohort, I'm not that I love it. I could tell everyone about it, but I don't think I'm the best teacher of it. I think I go too fast. So what I suggest you do, we'll go through it more in the cohort, but if you go to YouTube and if you Google, because there's only like one, if you Google Christian progressive muscle relaxation, it's a video, it's about 15 minutes. It might be 14, it might be 15. And there is one that also has, some thankfulness to Jesus in it, and he will walk you through it step by step at a good pace. And I've actually been going along with him as well lately. He'll tell you exactly which leg to extend, to flex, point, squeeze your calves. He'll walk you all through it. But you start with your toes basically, and you squeeze each muscle group, going up your legs, doing your, squeezing your bottom, squeezing your rump, because there's a whole lot of stress there. We've been sitting on our bottoms since we were born, right? Or since we could sit up. And then when you are finished, it's recommended that you do it laying down. I do it when I come home from work in the afternoon or right before bed. And if you do it before bed, you will, maybe not the first time. If you're really, really tense, you may not get it all out the first time, but you will definitely feel the difference. And so, deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and what's the other one? There's one more. Oh, vagus nerve exercises, which I'm not going to go into that deeply here, but the vagus nerve is at the back of our neck. It's thick, and it runs all the way down our spinal cord, and then it branches out and to every organ, every system in our body. And so when you do stretches, just very gentle stretches around the neck, that's another evidence base that reduces stress, reduces all the tension, reduces tension in your body. So once you've kind of got your body down and the tension out of your body, then starting at the end of week 1 and into week 2, we start looking at the mental rehearsal, the pouring out and the refilling strategy. So at the end of week 1, we do our first, what I call pouring out and refilling. And some people refer to it as a thought dump. But basically what you do is whatever you have been stressing about that week, you get out a notebook or you pull up a Word document if you prefer, if you could type faster than you can write. And you just, every thought that you're having that's negative, that's anxious about a situation, you just let it all out. Set a timer for at least 5 minutes. Just let it all out. Don't judge anything. Don't filter anything. Make sure you have a shredder nearby if you don't want anyone to see it. But yeah, you just get it all out. And then once it's out on the paper, it's out of your head, at least for the time being. And then we have a series of questions we go through to look at our thoughts once they're on paper, and go and to kind of be curious about our thoughts and ask questions. Is this true? What does God say about this? What if this is true? How do I want to show up for this? How am I going? So we go through a different process where if it's true, we have one sort of a way we address that. And if it's values based, how are we going to respond because this is true? How are we going to show up because this is true? And if it is not true, if it's a false thing, which a lot of anxiety is, but not all of it is. If it's a false belief or a fear of something that's unlikely to happen, but we're just worried that it is going to happen, there's another strategy to refill with that. So we do our first one at the end of the first week, that Friday, and then on Saturday, I intentionally have the Zoom on that Saturday after the Friday pour out, because that's where people start having their questions. They get their thoughts out and they just need a little bit of guidance to reframe and refill. And that Saturday Zoom is for everyone. If you're in the upgrade, you get to come on early and we do a guided practice, and you definitely will have time for any questions that you have. And as well as if you're in the upgrade, you can email me every day if you have any question at all. So that's the only difference. And the upgrade option also is it's $37. It's not like some ridiculous, $3,000 program. It's just a little donation to thank me, I guess, and to help me be able to continue doing this for more people. So then we go into week 2. Now, week 1, we also have some prayer practices that we're doing, but week 2, we really focus in on different prayer practices, because I don't know about you all, but I used to think that I was just the worst praying person ever. Especially because my husband gets up, hits the dining room table every morning, has consistent read the Bible prayer every single day that I've known him. And we've been married 28 years. And I'm just not like that. I get up, and maybe it's my anxiety. I get up and I'm like, there's things I need to do. And after I do those things, then I'll calm down. And so I tend to have my prayer time. If I'm not working, I tend to have it kind of midday. And if I am working, I usually have a little talk with Jesus in the car on the way to work. And then I have my prayer time in the evening. But even then, sometimes my prayer time isn't formal sit-down prayer time. I like to write. I like to write down my prayers and write down my prayer requests. And then one day I was just doing that, and having these types of thoughts that anxious people have. I'm not doing enough. I'm probably disappointing God. Look at my husband over there every day. He has so much faith. But I just really felt God say, Sherry, you're writing me letters. You're communicating with me. It's prayer. He was like, people in the Bible couldn't just, I guess David could. He had the means, but people in the Bible, they didn't have just paper and pens laying by. It counts. It counts, and it does count. And so my false sense of guilt has been released. And so what I realize now, that if you are a prayer slacker, first of all, we have to remember that our days aren't like God's days, right? So if we miss a day, it's it's just seconds or something like that in God's time. But maybe I'm just trying to rationalize now. But seriously, what I have discovered is that as long as we are not doing only informal prayer all the time, as long as we are doing what I call the effective prayer method, and it's a 4-step prayer method, as long as we're doing that 2 or 3 times a week, then there are other practices that are also prayer. And if they fit more in with your personality, then it makes it more fun. And you actually, I believe, makes it closer to God. I mean, I do my formal prayers, and the 4-step prayer method is you go to God first with thanksgiving and praise. That sets your heart right as you come into the prayer. Then you have a time of confession. Confession is so powerful. We're going to talk about this more in the cohort. I know I've talked about it before if you go back to some of the podcasts and things, but when you learn about what confession does for your life, you will start to love confession time. It's like, I want to confess because of all the spiritual benefits that I become aware of when I am constantly asking the Lord to search my heart. Help me with these things. Help me with this bitterness that I feel. Help me with this irritability. Help me with these, when we start going deep and start confessing these deeper things, it becomes very, very freeing. And, second is confession. Third is requests. Requests for yourself, requests for others. I never have to teach anyone how to do that. We all naturally know how to do that. And then the last one that makes a prayer effective is at the end, that amen. But what does amen mean? So, God's will be done, so be it. However, you're releasing. So at the end of the prayer, you get to the point where, hang on one second, this shut down. At the end of the prayer, you get to the point where you can really say, this is what I want, Lord. These are the things that I ask. I pray that it's within your will, that things work out this way. But if not, I'm going to trust that you know what's best. You know the big picture. And I'm just going to trust whatever you decide. I want what you want, God. And it can be hard to get there. But that's why we also focus on what I call prayer tracking. We start writing down at the end of the first week and the beginning of the second week, if you're not already writing down your prayer requests and tracking them, we start doing that. And then I have forms and things to help you with that. But we have 2 lists. We have kind of a short-term list, and then we have kind of a continuing prayer list of requests that aren't going to be answered right away because it's something that's maybe 6 months down the road or whatever like that before you expect to get a response. And then it's very, very important, especially important, to write down the little prayer requests, the things that don't even maybe really matter that much. I tell a lot, and here's why. I am convinced that we are sending up little prayers all the time, and then we forget we prayed them, and then God delivers and we miss it. We miss his patterns because we're not keeping track. And so I tell the story, I've told it many times and I'll never stop telling it, of a couple of things, but the one I tell the most is the one about my daughter. When she was in middle school, she had a terrible attitude about school. She was, turning in work that wasn't hers, as her own. I mean, it was, me being an educator and being the daughter of a teacher. It was very disturbing to me that I had a daughter who was acting like this at school. But at the same time, it was 7th grade, a lot of middle schoolers, they're not, so it was concerning, but it was not like number 1 priority on my prayer list. I need an intervention for my daughter. So I did just one time. I said, dear God, just please help Megan with her attitude towards school. And I wrote it down and closed up my journal and went about my life. And 6 weeks later, I'm in the kitchen, probably making dinner, and she comes strutting through the kitchen and she says, Mom, I've decided I'm going to take school seriously again. I'm going to try my best. And then she waltzed right back through the kitchen, and I didn't even pick up on it. I was like, okay, great. Didn't pick up on it. Didn't pick up on the next day. I'd completely forgotten I prayed it until I went back. And it was almost, I went back and I had to go back a ways, and I saw that 6 weeks prior I had prayed that. And I know a lot of people would say, oh, that could just be a coincidence. But you start, when you keep tracking things, you start to see God working. Because yeah, maybe it could have been a coincidence, but it was a complete transformation in her that I had nothing to do with. And you know, there's more to the story, but for the sake of time, another thing that you'll see when you start tracking your little prayer requests is that God sometimes has a little sense of humor, and he will answer your prayer exactly as you prayed it, even though you didn't really mean it that way. So to give you an example, with my first pregnancy, this was also Megan. So I was only, I guess I was 29 when she was born. But, so it was our first baby, and there was a marriage enrichment seminar. Gary Smalley and his son, they were doing it. They were coming to teach, and it was right around her. She was born 2 weeks before her due date, as it was, but you know, it was in that time of window when I just thought it'd be so great right before we have our first baby if my husband and I were able to attend this weekend seminar and get these communication strategies. And I really, really wanted to go. And I want to say it cost about $80, which back then, that's probably like about $300 now. It was money that we had paid that we weren't going to get back. So I really, really wanted to go. And so I had been praying to God, please, just, if it's within your will, let's hold off having this baby be born until after this seminar. You know, I really want to go. It'll be so good. Well, believe it or not, we went to that seminar. It was a Friday night, and then it was the next Saturday, and it went all the way into Saturday evening. And the seminar was over, and I walked out in the parking lot, and I went into labor right there. It's a pretty big church with a big parking lot, you know, between exiting the church and getting into the car, I literally had my first major contractions, and we went immediately from there. We ran home, got the bags, or we might have even had the bags in the car, just because it was that time. And yeah, I had the baby that night. So, so that was what I mean. And I joked with God. I was like, okay, yeah, God, I get this. Yeah, I didn't mean, after. I meant after the seminar, not after the seminar. But things like that. And it happens once or twice, but when it starts happening over and over, it's God. And that builds your faith more than you can imagine. And for people around you, it starts to build their faith as well. Because when stuff like that starts happening, you can't help but talk about it. And then other people what typically happens is if other people start hearing about your prayer journal, they start asking you, will you pray for me? Will you put that in your journal? Yeah, that's another story that I have. When my kids went off to college and they decided to go prodigal for a while, I would talk to them and they would literally say, please don't pray for me. please don't pray for me to go back to church. I mean, we obviously have a pretty understanding relationship. I went through a rebellious phase myself in my teens, believe it or not. And, but they would, and then it was about 5 or 6 years. I was worried for a while when they were not, when they were, going through their agnostic, maybe an atheist phase. But when God did call them back, then that was the first thing. I got the most calls. Mom, pray for this. Mom, put this in your journal. So I want you all to have that experience too. And in the last cohort, we did see, even within the 4 weeks, there were a couple of ladies that had prayed some small prayers, but they were answered, and it was significant. And it was a significant change that something that had been one way for quite some time, and then boom, that very week that she prayed it. And so I think God, when we write our requests down, I think God, they talk about persistence in prayer. I think that God, I don't know, he knows that we're not it pleases him. From me, that's what I found. That we trust in him enough to write it down and say, hey, God, I trust you, and I'm going to check back on this, and I'm going to remember what you do for me. So please start writing down your prayer requests. And if you don't, you will in the cohort. Okay. I've got off the notes. So effective prayer practices, and like I said, I'll give you the resources and the training in smaller chunks, so that we'll start really getting into that. We also learn some other prayer practices, like practicing the presence of Jesus, praying in silence in the Spirit, of course, journaling the prayers. So basically, you end up at the end of the 2 weeks, you have the lady said last time, I just feel like I have this whole collection of tools. I have this collection of strategies I can use to bring my anxiety down, to deal with my thoughts, and as well as to connect and pray with the Lord. And I feel like that it's not like it has to be this one way, like this one diet, you must do it this way and eat this many calories and cut out these foods, and everyone has to do it this way to be on this diet plan. It's more like, that's what we do in the 3rd week, is we kind of figure out, you have some time to figure out which practices are working the best for you, which ones feel most natural for you, which ones help you connect to the Lord the most, which ones help calm you the most. And so the 3rd week, we kind of smooth things out, and then the 4th week, it's really just, one final week, any final questions that we have, and those sorts of things. But all in all, the idea is that as we go through our day, and I used this metaphor last week too, as we go through our day, it's kind of like, imagine your day as you in a canoe or whatever, you going down the river, okay? And so whatever happens, if you're working, that your work day is going to be included in that, going to work, coming back. If you are retired, whatever it is that you're doing throughout your day, whether you're going out and volunteering in the community, or participating in church activities, or helping take care of your grandchildren, all those daily activities, it's like you're going down the current. And then these strategies that we learn are like little anchors, okay? And so when we start off the day with a few little anchors, and they don't take long, the morning anchors. Now, if you want to do your longer prayer time in the morning, go right ahead. But you have little practices in the morning that only take a minute or so. Then you have the longer practices that you can fit in wherever it works best for you. And then we have little practices at the end of the day. And so we have these anchors throughout the waters, so that when things do, so that we're always staying connected to God. But when things get stormy, we have some bigger anchors, and some of those anxiety strategies to help keep us secure. And that's really all I have for tonight. And but anyway, I did send out an email. Technically, the free registration is full. If you've already registered and you've gotten the email that says, welcome to the Faith and Soul Care Foundation's cohort, you are in. I am going to keep it open through the morning. And but I'm actually closing the registration. I'm going to take, I'm at the number that I thought I wanted to have. I'm going to take a few more because I do know that however many sign up for the free, probably only 25 to 30% will actually be on that Zoom. So it won't be too crowded to ask questions, and then only a fraction of those will actually have questions. So I am going to go ahead and keep it open. And then if you are interested in the upgrade option, let me see if I do this. I haven't done this before. Uh-oh. What happened? Okay. I don't know how to do that. There's a way I could click something. Oh, links. Nope. Okay. Well, I will come back on in just a minute and I will put the links. But you probably have the links in your email if you're on my email list. There is if you're already signed up for the free registration, you can re-sign up, and then after you do that, you'll get to the upgrade page, the $37 upgrade page, if you would like to have just a little bit more time to have your questions answered, and directly and more personally to maybe specific situations that you may be dealing with. So that's all. Bye for now, and I look forward to meeting some of you all very soon. Starting on Monday. You'll get your first set of information no later than Sunday night. I just send it out Sunday night, so that you're not hitting Monday morning wondering what to do. You at least have some time to look over it Sunday evening before the week starts. So, all right, that's all for tonight. Bye for now.